All right, Broncos country, let's bring down the curtain on the preseason. The preseason finale is just about upon us. The Broncos are going to play the starters, including Bo Nix and some other important players. What are we going to watch for in the game? What are the competitions still looming on the roster? And what's the lingering impact of the trade of Devon Vele to those New Orleans Saints, who the Broncos are going to play in this preseason finale? We'll dive into that on this edition of Denver Football After Dark. It's midnight in the Mountain Time Zone. I'm sure the Broncos are all nestled snug in their beds. They'll exchange that skyline for the New Orleans skyline over the next 24 hours or so. So Denver Football After Dark here on this Friday morning in the Mile High City. Broncos getting ready to head down to Louisiana to take on the New Orleans Saints. The last preseason game of each team's preseason, it's usually arranged by the teams. Other preseason games are set by the league, and then the last preseason one is usually set up by the teams themselves, which is why you often see the Broncos taking on their fellow Mountain Time Zone denizens, the Arizona Cardinals. But this year, of course, it's a little bit different. It's the New Orleans Saints, and somehow I think it's telling that the Broncos are closing the preseason against the Saints. I think maybe Sean Payton wanted it that way. He still has a place down in New Orleans, of course, and New Orleans is very near and dear to his heart. So I've got a feeling that maybe the coach kind of arranged for this game to happen. Going back to New Orleans, back to the Superdome. Broncos headed back there for the second time in 10 months. Of course, they played a regular season game there back last October. And those fans in New Orleans are going to get to see Bo Nix, something that the home fans, of course, did not see last week. As coming off the second joint practice in a week, the Broncos did not play their starters against the Cardinals last week at home. It'll be Bo Nix and the offensive starters for 8 to 10 plays, and the defensive starters for 8 to 10 plays, which means in all likelihood, we're going to see Dre Greenlaw and Alex Singleton together on the field for the first time. And so they've been on the field practicing together this week, as actually getting reps together, which of course have been rare for them because both were injured early in training camp and both missed the offseason, aside from walkthrough reps because they were recovering from injuries, of course. Alex Singleton, the torn ACL from week 3 last year against Tampa Bay, and Dre Greenlaw, after recovering from the Achilles that he had in Super Bowl 58, had the quad injury in the offseason, and then, of course, early in training camp had another quad injury when he was covering J.K. Dobbins. So earlier this week, I asked Sean Payton about kind of the value of getting those two some game reps and how necessary it was in terms of getting them their cohesion and chemistry and communication down, which is usually so essential for inside linebacker tandems.
Well, I think all these snaps, they all factor, when they're out on the field together. And so we got this week, we got Saturday, and then obviously a few days next week, then we're leading into the game, and then there's going to be that that growth at the start of the season. But I do think it's a good question, and I'd be curious to hear their response.
Yep, and I'll probably ask if I get the chance to after the game, and that's actually a big if, because the way things go after games, they don't open the locker room until after Sean Payton finishes his press conference, and so if he gets going, that means sometimes the locker room is kind of cleared out by the time we get in there. So I'm hoping to ask Dre Greenlaw and or Alex Singleton about kind of what they get out of this game, assuming they play on Saturday. So hopefully they'll still be in there and I get a chance to ask them a couple of questions about that. So, because I'm curious to see what they say about that as well, because I know Alex over the years has really talked about the value of communication and kind of reaching that point where you don't even need to speak. You can just use gestures or even looks. He's talked about that with Josie Jewell and how they reached that level of communication. So that's something that sometimes you only get through actual on-field work, and you can get but so much in practice, but how much do you get from the games as well? How necessary are those game snaps, and how many do you need to kind of really get there, and how much can you get out of just even a handful of snaps? How much does that help? Well, we're fixing to find out. So competition abounds on the roster, and Detroit Mission Control asking about why I have 3 quarterbacks on the 53. Could their third-string quarterback pass through waivers? Of course, we'll see Sam Ehlinger in this game. First of all, on Sam Ehlinger, he's not subject to the waiver process. He is a 5th-year veteran. You look on the Broncos roster, it says 5 next to him. So he was with the Colts for 4 years, gained 4 years of service time, was never waived by them. 4 years, was there 4 years the whole time. So he's a vested veteran. So the Broncos could release him and get him to the practice squad, but there's a consequence to that. So just going to look at his contract here real quick as I go through Broncos contracts here. We're just going to get their contracts here. Just going to just go click on the figures here. It's always great when it's always great YouTubing, great television, whatever, great radio, great whatever I'm doing when I am looking up something. This is why I love doing Orange and Blues 760 when I did the show with Steve Atwater and Ryan Edwards. The advantage of a 3-person show is that I could look something up and they could talk. Or Steve could look something up and Ryan and I could talk. So like the other two could carry it while one of us was researching something. Anyway, so here's the thing on Sam Ehlinger. He has 4 accrued seasons before, so thus vested veteran. He's got $300,000 of guaranteed salary. So if the Broncos were to cut him, they would actually have $467,500 of dead money. They could put him on the practice squad and then use some elevations and all that, but then you'd have dead money and then you'd have what you're paying him on the practice squad as well. So you'd have $730K of cap savings, but then you'd eat into that cap savings by what you're paying him on the practice squad. So it's not really something that you'd necessarily want to do, and it would not be doing right by him as a player. Furthermore, look at some of the quarterbacks that you're seeing signed right now. I mean, they're going off the market. I mean, our old friend Ben DiNucci, the beloved The Nuke, just signed with the Falcons, right? So if you did release Sam Ehlinger, there's probably going to be a team that would say, oh, maybe the Broncos are going to play the elevation game with you, but we might offer you, we're going to offer you a spot on our 53. So I've got Sam Ehlinger on my 53. And I think he's going to be on the 53 when all is said and done. I think that is something I expect. So The nuke. If we don't get a daily show through the regular season, I'm unsubscribing. Okay, Sean, you're going to get, unless something changes schedule wise or whatever, you're going to get this. You're gonna get this show. I mean, I'll try to warn you if there's not going to be a show. Like, I'll warn you right now, just given the early time of the game, 11 a.m. Mountain on Saturday, it's possible there may not be a Friday night show. And I know with travel, there may not be a Saturday night show. So I'm going to warn everybody here, programming note. Because that game is 11 a.m. Saturday Mountain Time, there may not be a Friday night show. And if there is a Friday night show, it might be after dark, but it might be earlier. It might literally be 9 p.m. Mountain Time, 10 p.m. Central. So that's the programming note here. But that's why you see what to watch for in the preseason finale. So I figured I would do the pregame show here Thursday night, Friday morning, just to get this out. So anyway. There will probably not be a Saturday night show post-game, as it's my travel schedule, traveling to Florida to go see my mom. Hi, Mom. I know you're watching. So you may not be watching live, but I know Mom watches the show. So there will probably be a Sunday night show as well, but probably not a Saturday night show, as I'm going to be in transit. So that's a programming note. But yeah, this is going to be a regular show, and would you bless us do one of these week on Sunday nights after the game or Monday? My plan is that there will be Sunday night shows. That's actually something I'm looking forward to. Now, Sunday night after primetime games, like for example, I don't know if there's going to be a Sunday night show after the Washington game on Sunday Night Football. That's one that I'm not sure timing-wise may work out, especially with that game being 8:30 Eastern, ending at 11:30. So I'm getting out of the locker room at 12:15. Then I'm doing my stand-up at 12:30, and then I finish editing that and posting that at 1:30, and then I'm writing until about 2:33 in the morning, and then I'm back to the hotel at 3:30 Eastern time. So you can you get the sense of my schedule for a Sunday night Eastern time zone game, when by then at that point I will have been in the Eastern time zone for about 3 or 4 days. So I'll warn you on the Washington game, probably don't expect a show after that. That might be a little much at that point, but probably maybe I might just like turn it on, and you can have an empty, and there'll be a blank screen and y'all can talk about it. And I might not be saying very much. So anyway, but there'll be some way to discuss it. And I'll have a stand up, I'll have a video recorded. So there will be something on this channel. And that video, of course, will also be on the Denver Sports Facebook channel. It'll be on my Twitter /X. It'll be on the Denver Sports Facebook or Denver Sports Twitter and X. It'll be everywhere. So there'll be a place where you'll get my thoughts, and then you can feel free. It won't be obviously the live chat that you see here on YouTube, but there will be a place for you to share your thoughts, and there'll be a place where I will get things off my chest. So anyway, did we get info who is and who isn't playing? We know starters, pretty much all the starters for 8 to 10 plays. Jahdae Barron did not practice Thursday. Sean Payton expects him to play Saturday. We were expecting Alex Singleton and Dre Greenlaw in all likelihood to play on Saturday as well for just a little bit. But most of this game is going to belong to the backups, and most of this game probably is going to be defined by those last few spots on the 53. I think one of the more interesting things, I do wonder if we're going to see A.T. Perry, for example. A.T. Perry, of course, activated from the PUP last week, and he's been working his way into shape. He's been, we've seen his work kind of go up and up and up and up as he's been incrementally kind of ramping his way up back into form. Of course, the former Saints receiver, the Broncos added him to the practice squad last year. As he mentioned to me back in January, part of his work on the practice squad even included some occasional first-team reps in practice. He's a guy who's been in this system now for most of his career because the Saints still ran the Sean Payton offense after Payton left because Pete Carmichael, longtime Sean Payton assistant, remained as their offensive coordinator for the 2 seasons after Sean Payton left. Then they dismissed Carmichael after 2023. Carmichael joined Sean Payton's staff in 24 when the Saints tried to pass A.T. Perry to the practice squad early last season. Perry balked at that. Pete Carmichael and Sean Payton gave the sales pitch to A.T. Perry when he was waived, convinced him to come here, sold him on the vision. We know how Sean Payton loves that term. And Perry's been here ever since. The setback, of course, that he had being injured in the offseason, that cost him the entire offseason of work, left him on the PUP, so he's been having to play catch up in a hurry. It's an interesting spot for him. The injury that he had and the fact that he was on the practice squad last year probably means there's a pretty decent chance that you can slip him through to the practice squad. Certainly, I think the Broncos are still pretty high on him and would like to get him to the practice squad. And I'm curious to see if he actually plays in this game, if they want to see where he is, or if they decide not to play him. Because maybe playing him might not be a good idea if they're trying to sneak him through to the practice squad. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of hide him a little bit. Conversely, if they have decided to keep one of their undrafted rookies as the 6th receiver, and Sean Payton kind of implied at his press conference on Thursday that a 6th receiver is still very much in play on this roster, then if you've decided on the 6th receiver, presumably that's going to, then you would see that player play on Saturday. I think the question would be then, who is that 6th receiver going to be if it's an undrafted rookie? All of them have flashed. Probably the 2 most likely candidates of the 4 would be Courtney Jackson because of his ability on returns, and then Joaquin Davis because of some nice work. I thought last week had a good game, even made a nice block as well. And then just the measurables on him, the 4.3, 640, 6.5 frame, big-time catch radius, the hands that he's shown. I mean, the ball just kind of sticks in there. 42-inch vertical. Every team, by the way, has the measurables on him. Everyone's got the data from the HBCU Combine. That was really where he kind of shot onto a lot of radars last winter. And the fact that he's put some good film in the preseason out there, I think there's probably a decent chance you may not be able to pass him through the practice squad if you really value him. So I know Cody Roark, my friend from over at Mile High Sports, he put this out on social media Thursday night that a lot of us in the beat reporter core, after we heard Sean Payton mention the possibility of a 6th receiver, and we were our informal poll, our informal discussion, we kind of came to the conclusion that if they keep a 6th receiver, it would probably be Joaquin Davis being the guy that gets the nod, in part because of these measurables, these attributes that he has. It's the collection of attributes that would probably intrigue some teams, and that the film, especially last week's film, is probably going to be enough to catch some team's eye. And now that there is a 6th receiver spot with Devon Vele gone, it would seem like he might be the guy Kind of like Frank Crum at tackle last year that sort of fits the bill. And now, I mean, I think there's probably room to keep a developmental guy like Joaquin Davis on the 53. So that's something I think to watch for. And if you see Joaquin Davis play a bunch on Saturday, then it's obvious they're not trying to hide him. If you're trying to pass somebody through the practice squad, then you hide them and don't play them very much on Saturday. So that's another thing I think when we talk about what to watch for in this preseason finale, to come back to the title of this show. If you see somebody that maybe isn't getting a lot of reps, that's a guy they're perhaps trying to hide. Like, I think it'll be interesting to see how the running back reps are divvied up. Because let's go back a couple of years. Y'all remember Albert Okwuegbunam. Albert O, I think somebody for which we all had quite a few high hopes, right? And that preseason finale 2 years ago was an Albert O showcase, and we talked a lot about how that game went, how he looked. I think some of us were excited, saying, okay, hey, maybe this is how you justify keeping Albert O. Maybe even saying, okay, could he be your joker? Because Sean Payton was already talking about joker. He's looking for his joker. Could it be Greg Dulcich? Could it be Albert O? Well, it turned out that was the showcase for Albert O to be sent off to Philadelphia. So, if you see somebody showcase, I'll toss a name out there. Let's say the running back who gets the most reps is Audric Estime. Does that mean they're showcasing Audric Estime for a trade? I mean, that's, again, we saw with Albert O 2 years ago, right? Again, another thing to watch for in this game. Who plays and how much? Let's say we don't see much of Blake Watson. Does that mean they're trying to sneak him through the practice squad? Are they hoping they didn't roll the dice on him at the cut down last year? Are they going to roll the dice on him this time? So, anyway, this is, are they going to, Michael Davis pointing it out, are they going to hide Badie? So, are they going to do that? Appreciate you, Ignacio, coming in for your quick break, spending some of your break with this show here. So, thank you very much. None of the undrafted free agents are on Madden. Well, maybe one of them will make the team and get there. I'd like to see Joaquin Davis on Madden. Soothing. I appreciate that. I had many years ago, I had an ex-girlfriend say my voice was soothing. Oh gosh, I do agree, Donald. Joaquin's probably going to be snapped up, even though. Let me go get the data here. Wide receiver, relatively low rate of players snapped up right there, third from the bottom, 3.97%. But he is a rookie, and rookies do have a higher percentage snapped up, and as you can see there, I mean that's higher than the overall rate. But those are draft picks; those are not rookies at large. So I think Joaquin Davis probably is one who does not slip through, and I'm trying not to be a victim of the overvaluing your own assets, which I think sometimes we all kind of fall victim to, but there are some special attributes. As I said to one of the fellow reporters today, that you 6'5" guys with 42-inch verticals and 4.3 640s that actually have hands like that don't just fall out of trees. Like it's an unusual set of attributes that this young man possesses. And he's grown. I mean, he is developed as a blocker faster than I thought he would. He's incredibly raw. He was incredibly raw when he got here. I remember watching him in the rookie mini camp, and you're seeing him as a route runner, and you're seeing like you could see the potential, but I thought, boy, a long way to go. But I said, I'd love to get him in the practice squad and keep him around and see where he is in a year. Well, he's doing some things in terms of route running even that I thought he would be doing like in next year's OTAs. So he's growing quickly. So in terms of getting open, in terms of reading where the safeties are, finding gaps in coverage, so that's encouraging. So where can he go with some time? It's exciting. It's exciting. I hope. I mean, as Sean Payton will say, you root for all these guys, but I'd like to see him stick around. I think it's a pretty special skill set. A.T. Perry makes the team or Bandy. I would say this with Michael Bandy. If he's around, if he sticks, I think it's because maybe one of the undrafted rookies that they wanted to get to the practice squad maybe went somewhere else for a better opportunity. Because, like, here's a thing to consider. They may not get every player they want on the practice squad because some of these guys may see a better opportunity, a quicker path to playing time elsewhere, a la Jalen Virgil last year. The thing is, you have a couple of guys that could be potential slot receivers on the practice squad that could be slot. They could play the slot on the scout team. That's Kyrese Rowan and Jerwan Newton. Michael Bandy can do that very well on the scout team, but you know who and what he is. He's been in the league now for going on 4 years into his 5th season. You don't know what Newton is. You don't know what Rowan is. They're young. They're rookies. If you're going to make a choice between 2 guys for your practice squad and they can fill that specific role for the scout team, you're probably going to go with the younger guy who has upside rather than somebody where you know kind of who and what he is by this point. So that's why I think if they came down to it, they'd probably go with, if they had the choice, they would go with Rowan or Newton over Bandy for the practice squad, just because I think they'd want to go with a guy with upside. So anyway, that's something to consider as well. Jackson's pretty good returner, could free up Mims for more offensive snaps. I mean, that's the other thing. Jackson might be your second team returner if he's still around. And so that's why he's a dark horse to be on the 53 as well, because there might be a specific spot for him. But I don't think they want to move Mims off returns because he's so dynamic and because those snaps are game-changing snaps for the entire team, and he's so dynamic there. And Marvin Mims Jr. being back there on returns changes how teams kick to you, changes how teams punt to you. All of a sudden, maybe they're punting to one side. They're not trying to punt deep. They're going for a shorter punt to the sideline. So they're maybe not thinking about flipping the field. Instead, they're thinking, okay, maybe a 35-yard net to the sideline because I don't want to take the chance on Marvin Mims Jr. getting a return. So I don't think you really want to take away return snaps from Marvin Mims Jr. because that's a huge part of this team's success equation as well. Sean Payton believes in the importance of special teams. These are not throwaway snaps to him. I mean, this is a coach who firmly believes that when you come into an operation, it's one of the ways to microwave improvement is by fixing that phase. And that was one of the ways the Broncos went from 5 wins to 8 wins quickly, is they turned their special teams from arguably the league's worst into one of the league's best overnight. So I don't see taking reps from Marvin Mims Jr. on returns as something that they want to do. Even though Courtney Jackson can be a good returner, when they're looking at Mims, it's taking things off his plate on returns. That's not something that's really in play, because when they're looking at the team's success equation and they're looking at what they want to get out of Mims, those snaps are valuable. And I think when they look at kind of what they want to get out of Mims, let's say they're thinking 10 touchdowns out of Mims. They don't really care how it comes. If Marvin Mims gets 10 touchdowns and it's 3 return, 5 receiving, 2 rushing, I think they'd be ecstatic with that. I don't think if Marvin gets 10 touchdowns, I don't think they care how they come. I think they just care that they come. If it's 3 on special teams, if it's 5 on special teams, if it's 1 on special teams, I don't think they care. They just want to get him touches and chances to change the game with those touches, no matter what phase they're in. They just want to get the ball in his hands. They're thinking touches any way they can get them to him. He's a weapon, and they want to get the ball in the hands of their weapons, and he's one of them. So, anyway, they're going to concede the kickoff and let it come out to the 35. This is another thing on Mims. And this is something that Darren Rizzi has mentioned. If the threat of him means teams just say, we're going to kick it in the end zone, that's a win. The ball at the 35-yard line is a win. That's how they regard it. So either they kick it to Mims and he has a chance to make a big play, or they kick it in the end zone and it's a 35-yard line. Either way, the Broncos win. They either get good field position to start a drive at the 35-yard line. What you're a quick slant from midfield, or they kick it to Marvin Mims Jr. and potentially he breaks the game open. Either way, Broncos are happy with that. So the threat of Mims can cause a positive, or Mims with the ball is a positive. So you want him on the field, one way or the other. So, do I think Brashard Smith will be able to sign? Nope. I do not think the Chiefs are going to waive Brashard Smith at all. Am I concerned about Jeremy Crawshaw? Nope. Not concerned about him. And Darren Rizzi's not concerned about him either. And yes, he'd probably have a corner if Mims would move off kick coverage. But yeah, believe me, he's like, and that's, again, that's how he's viewing it. Either if you kick to Mims, we win. If you don't kick to Mims, we win. Either way. It's pick your poison. You're either going to kick, you're either going to put the ball in his hands and he has a chance to make a back-breaking play, or you're going to kick it, you're going to give us the ball at the 35. So, hey, that's all these ways. There's all these things can help you win football games. Like, this is, there's a lot of ways to get these things done, right? I mean, so, as the old cliche, many ways to skin a cat, as they say. So, yeah, he likes, yeah, exactly. Sean Payton, he doesn't view special teams as a throwaway play, or like, oh, well, I can't use my best players on returns because they might get hurt. No. In his mind, a kickoff return or a punt return is a chance to make a big play. That's how he perceives those plays. It's not an excuse to just get to the let's just get through this and get to the offense. No, it's here's a chance to make a play. That's how he views it. And it's one of the things I respect about him as a coach, that he doesn't treat special teams like some frickin' afterthought. It matters to him. Like the special teams periods are long and detailed in his practices in a way that, frankly, they aren't always with some coaches. And I mean, with all due respect to other coaches, I mean, the special teams periods with Nathaniel Hackett, I mean, maybe this is the reason why they failed. That era failed. The special teams periods with Nathaniel Hackett were not close to the ones that they're like with Sean Payton. Not close to the level of detail. Actually, the last time the level of detail on special teams in practice was like this was Gary Kubiak and Joe DeCamillis, which, by the way, was the last time before now that the special teams for the Broncos were really good, before the Sean Payton era. Not a coincidence. Not a coincidence. So, anyhow. All right. Thanks for coming by, Ignacio. Appreciate it. You realize the Broncos passed? Yes, they did pass on Brashard Smith for Jeremy Crawshaw. Yes, they did. One of the things on Jeremy Crawshaw is to just go back to the draft. A lot of times when you are getting to that point in the draft, everybody's projecting what their 53 is going to look like when they are getting to the late rounds. And at that point, the Broncos were looking at their roster and saying, there really is maybe only one spot where if we picked a guy, that player was definitely going to make the roster, and that was punter. And it helped that Darren Rizzi really, really, really liked Jeremy Crawshaw. Like, just the two of that, like, we know about the lunches they had. Like, it wasn't just one lunch, it was multiple lunches. Like, the two of them vibed. They got along great. They communicated well. I mean, and that's why just one shaky game was not going to make Darren Rizzi lose his faith in his guy. He believes in him. And that's why, like, when the question was asked, are you going to bring in another punter? I mean, he just dismissed it like that. He's trusting the large sample size. So don't expect a punter to come in for a while. They're gonna give Crawshaw some time here. So just hold your horses on this. So anyhow, alligator bites or catfish. I'm more of a shrimp and oysters guy. So I'll probably have some of that. Brashard Smith, yeah. And I like Brashard Smith a lot. And he's one of the guys that I talked up pre-draft. But I can see why they took Crawshaw. Like, they did need a punter. No offense to Matt Hawk, but if he was their punter, the Broncos are probably looking at a situation where if you rank the punter situations in the league, they'd probably be about 29 or 30, and they probably would have been looking at the waiver wire or trading for a punter who's about to be waived or released. Kind of like they did with Will Lutz a couple of years ago. So, anyway. All I can tell you is that the vast majority of this kid's punts are bombs in practice. So, it's just a matter of finding that consistency in games. The broad sample size is this guy has a cannon. It's just that he's got to kind of settle down and show that when the lights are on. And I hope he can. Good dude, strong leg, can see the potential. I mean, what I hope doesn't happen is that it doesn't work out here and the Broncos let him go and then he goes somewhere else and he kills it, which has happened with some kickers and punters before. And you hope that's not the case here. I hope the Broncos are patient enough to let him kind of figure it out. But we know how this works sometimes. And this is a Super Bowl contending team. And, what if there's a game where they're in 4-minute offense and they go 3 and out and you need a big punt and then it's Shankopotamus. And then with that field position, They drive downfield, opponent drives downfield to a game-winning field goal, and then it's gonna hurt, man. So, does Jordan Turner have a chance? Yeah, he's got a chance after last week's game. If they keep an undrafted free agent on defense, probably him or Reed, I'd say he's moved ahead of Karene Reed as the undrafted linebacker that I think has the best shot to stay there. So, a punter, Marquette King. He wasn't a rookie. Guy they brought in came in 2018, and he had a cannon as well. And the other thing where I recall is the battle between Marquette King and D-Mac. That was wild. Oh, man, that was fun. PJ Locke is a critical depth piece, but here's the problem. The Broncos could save $4 million plus of cap space if they let him go. I do wonder about if there's maybe a restructure in play to keep him around. We'll see. We got a comment on the Saints winning that trade. Wait, Devon Vele is not going to be a fourth-string receiver, right? Devon Vele is going to be starting for you guys. I mean, he's one of your top 3 receivers, is he not? So, in my opinion. So, man, I think Devon Vele might end up having 70 catches for the Saints. Just my take. But part of it is your Saints are going to be playing from behind a lot because you guys might be losing 12 or 13 games. Of course, then again, I don't know if you can see it here, but I did spend a lot of years in Tampa Bay, so I've got a little part of my heart still in Tampa, so I can't really say I have a lot of love for the New Orleans Saints as a result. So anyway, I can't say I'm a Saints fan. I can probably say I'm the exact opposite of a Saints fan. I'm not really the only other club in the NFC South for which I have any affection is the club I used to work for, the Carolina Panthers, for a couple of years. So between working for the Panthers and having spent time in Tampa Bay, let's just say I'm not a fan of the Saints at all. I kind of liked seeing them lose over the years. And that's all I have to say about that. You have 3 receivers that be your guy's best receiver. Oh, come on. Now I know you're trolling. Oh, that's good. I appreciate that. Oh, thanks for coming. That's oh man. That's good. That's good. That's good. I'd say based on what I've seen from Tyler Shuck, I'd say keep the paper grocery bags handy for the end of the season. You're going to need them. Oh boy. Anyway, no, it's all good. It's all good fun. I don't, just as long as we keep the visiting fans that come in here, as long as we keep it clean. I know we had a troll in here a night or two ago, and it got a little nasty and all that. No, we keep it clean, we keep it civil and lighthearted, and that's gonna be it. That's all we're gonna do. Just a little joshing and little needling. That's all we're looking for. So that's okay. That's okay. Hey, Saints fans have been through a lot over the years, so it does take some gumption to be a Saints fan. But boy, oh boy, I have to say this. I was surprised it was the Saints that traded for Devon Vele. I did expect Vele to be traded because I thought he had value. I actually guessed 5th round pick on Vele if he was traded. So I was surprised it ended up being a fourth. I did not figure it would be the Saints, but then again, I shouldn't be surprised because this is the team that continues to kick the salary cap can down the road year after year. So this, at some point, they need to accept that they got to swallow the pill and build for the future, and yet they just can't do it. I mean, I was flabbergasted that they traded a fourth-round pick and not a potential compensatory fourth-round pick, but the fourth-round pick that literally could be the first pick in the fourth round. That one just, that floored me. But, hey, they good for them. Does Vele's chances help Blake Watson's chances if his versatility if receivers get decimated? Possibly, but I still think kind of Sean Payton, the way he was talking and still saying 6 receivers, I'd say he still sounded like a guy that was going to keep 6 receivers. I think if Blake Watson stays, it's 4 running backs. I think Blake Watson might be, if you end up keeping 8 offensive linemen instead of 9, or if you end up going 6 defensive linemen and you don't keep that 7th, I've said it's possible to keep 7. If you go with 4 inside linebackers, I mean, there are even ways to keep 5 running backs. That's not out of the equation here. I mean, I think you go without a fullback. Now, the interesting thing that did arise today was Sean Payton saying Nate Adkins not going to be on injured reserve, that his injury won't keep him out 4 weeks and that he's too valuable to sit on the shelf for 4 weeks when he's going to be back before then. So now that's a 3rd tight end. That probably, I think, takes Caden Prescorn off the 53, out of the calculus there. And I think you're trying to pass him to the practice squad. So now, with, say, Caleb Lohner, with the athletic measurables, are you going to try to keep him on the 53, or are you saying, no, we're only going 3 tight ends? Does this mean Lucas Kroll's not making the 53? Does he not have a chance now? Especially if you want to keep Blake Watson. I mean, this is all these things that are kind of coming in place. So, Prescorn, I feel bad for Prescorn, but then again, that fumble last week might have made it easier for the Broncos to get him to the practice squad, right? I mean, a couple of us were joking as we were watching practice that when he fumbled, that George Payton might have gone yes, now we can pass him through. Now we got a better chance of getting him to the practice squad. Just a little, anyway. Nate Atkins is a classic Sean Payton player. Coaches like guys like that. This is going in the way back machine, but do you remember Patrick Hape on the Broncos for 4 years with Mike Shanahan? From 01 to 04, played fullback, H-back, tight end. And I remember that year after year, you'd think that Patrick Hape was going to get pushed off the roster. And year after year, Patrick Hape ended up making it. And he was with Tampa Bay the previous 4 years. And the same thing. You're like, how does this guy keep making the roster? But he does, because he just did a little of everything. And he played special teams as well. Guys like that just tend to stick. Utility players. They're the utility infielders of the NFL. They can do a little of everything. Versatile. Exactly. So, Lucas Kroll is actually, by the way, Eric the Blue. Lucas Kroll has caught some passes from Bo Nix. Lucas Kroll had a good day in the joint practice, getting some reps with the ones, catching some passes from Bo. So, it's one of the things I'll say. I mentioned Lucas Kroll. I mentioned Jordan Jackson getting pushed by Savion Jones. These guys that have had players come in the offseason, they have not, at their positions, they have not given up their roles easily. They have fought back tooth and nail to keep their spots. Like, they were pushed, and boy, they've responded. And that, to me, that's got to count for something. So, is Trent Sherfield that good of a special teamer to trade Vela? Yes, he absolutely is. Not just as a player, but as a leader. And he's even a pretty good pass catcher as well in a pinch. Yeah, he's... Trent, and I don't make this statement lightly. Trent Sherfield reminds me a little of Steve Tasker. Like, he's got some of that same... He's got not quite as hair on fire, but the same kind of intelligence, the same kind of mentality, the same kind of grit. He's got all those things that the great special teamers have had. It's what's kept him in the league. He's a real nice pickup. I wouldn't be surprised if Trent Sherfield ends up staying around here for a while. If the Broncos keep re-signing him. He might be one of those dudes that they just fall in love with after this year and they keep bringing him back. I like him a lot. Like, I've chatted with him a couple of times. He's like just had a nice interview. You can actually find the interview with Trent Sherfield at denversports.com on the YouTube channel. And if you watch it, I think you'll like him as much as I like him. Good, very good guy to have in the locker room. That's a great thing. Like, do Keith Burns, and that's another guy that I really liked as well. I'm a fan of special teamers. I'm a fan of grit guys on special teams. Like, I'm a fan of JL Skinner, the way he plays on special teams. Man, that guy, there's a hair on fire guy on teams. There's a guy who plays like every rep is his last. I hope he's still around next week. I enjoy watching him out there too. Lower practice squad if they have Adkins out, Troutman, Ingram. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair as well. Yes. I'm seeing the Saints fan talk about last year's game. Favorite special teams player of all time. Yeah, Ty. I love JL Skinner too, and I know he's favored up in Boise. Favorite special teams player of all time. Ooh. Good question. Wayback Machine. Loved Kenneth Gant. Cowboy, was in Tampa Bay in the mid-'90s as well. Got people fired up to his little shark dance on kickoffs. So I was a fan of him. So he is one of my favorites. Gosh, Keith Burns is up there. So okay, I got a story for you. So there was a reporter for the Associated Press, the late Dale Bublitz, and one day after practice, the special teamers stayed late, and Keith Burns gathered them all, and he was team captain, special teams captain. And he was upset about something. And he was MFing these guys into oblivion. I mean, it was to use a quote from A Christmas Story, it was, basically this cloud of obscenity that probably was still hanging in space over Lake Michigan, as he said, that the cloud would probably be hanging over the Rocky Mountains somewhere. And so Dale Bublitz, who was a very, he was very blunt, but he had a funny way of phrasing things, and he said, "Sounds like my annual performance review." and that's what I always think of. So Keith Burns tick. He had a very colorful vocabulary. He has a very colorful vocabulary to this day. So, do I think Surfield changes number 4 and gives number 5 to Harvey after the 53 trim? I mean, why would a veteran change his number? I mean, why would a veteran change his number for a rookie? I guess. I mean, I guess he's feeling generous, but nah, he shouldn't have to. If Trent wants the number, Trent has seniority. It's his. So, kid brother looked like a tick about to pop. Yep, yes. Are the Broncos interested in other teams' players to sign when cuts happen? Oh, well, they're always looking. That's pro scouting's job. That's Jordan Dizon's job. He's going to be scouring that. You also cross-check with your college scouts. You cross-check with your scouting reports on these guys. Look, if you see someone on the wire that was waived from this year's draft class and you had a 3rd-round grade on him and you're still intrigued by him, you're going to maybe make a claim. I mean, that's kind of how these things go. Look, we saw this with the trade of Devon Vele, that just because you're a Super Bowl contender does not mean that when an offer comes in, even though what you're getting back, you're not going to see the true value of that probably until at least 26, if not 27, doesn't mean you don't take that. You're still thinking about the long term here. Now, fortunately, a receiver, you've got enough players and enough faith in the guys on hand to where you're knocking on every surface you can find and saying, okay, we got faith in these guys. We're going to be okay. We shouldn't miss him because of what we have. But you are always thinking about the future. You're always thinking about your development. There will be at least a couple of players kept on the 53 where you're thinking about the long-term development, that they may not be among the best 53 today, but they are hopefully going to be among your key players tomorrow. These things matter. $22 Janos for special teams. Jano. Love Jano. Jano. I've got that ready. Brock Olivo. That's when he was asked about Jano, and that's his response right there. That was look at him. Look at the eyes right there when you mentioned Jano. If we had 22 Janos, we'd be all right. Man. He wasn't much of a special teams coordinator, but he gave us that gift. 22 Janos. Oh boy. We've had some special teams coordinators around here, haven't we? We had Brock Olivo. We had Tom McMahon and I like Tom McMahon a lot. The only thing about him, nicknamed Midge. The only thing about Midge was I think he had these ideas in his head, like the infamous fake punt. Like he was responsible for that infamous fake punt with the Colts, where he had the 3 guys line up and the close to right there at the snap, and it was the snap right there, and the Patriots just overwhelmed it. And of course, there was the botched fake punt here in 2019. He had these ideas in his head that that probably felt great, but when you put them in actual practice, it didn't work. Like sort of like an idea that I had once in my head when I designed a play called the Supercross, where the two receivers kind of crossing each other, their routes intersected, and it in my mind it was great, and then actually went out there and did it in practice, and it completely bombed. But that's the thing sometimes. Like, you have an idea, and in your mind it's fabulous, and then you actually put it into use, and it doesn't work in reality. That was, I think, Tom McMahon. And then, of course, Dwayne Stukes. And not having a Mount Rushmore of special teams coaches in the 21st century guy in the building in Jerry Rosburg, and not seeking out his advice. I mean, I think that's part of why Jerry, on the first day he was interim head coach, said "see ya" to Stukes, because, I mean, I can't blame him. Jerry Rosburg, a very decent man, but like this guy's not gonna at least seek me out when I'm down the hall. Like, dude, what are you thinking? Your special teams are terrible, and you're not even going to come down, say, hey, can you help? I mean, there was so much. And I think the thing that Rosburg showed in 2 weeks on the job as interim head coach was that team, that was not a 5-12 team, even with the injuries. That was just an incredibly badly coached team. That was a team that probably should have won 8 or 9 games under any competent coach. Should have won 8 or 9 games, but with that coach, won 5. But we saw, like, in those last 2 weeks that they actually were a decent team that was just horribly managed. So it would have been interesting if they had lost that Jaguars game in London. Nathaniel Hackett probably would have been fired the next day. And then Rosburg would have been the coach for 9 games. And I believe that if Rosburg had coached the team for 9 games, I think they would have won 5 of them. And if Rosburg goes 5-4, then what do you do? It's an interesting thought. If they go 5-4 in the back half of that schedule, they have a winning record with the guy, what do you do? Is Sean Payton the coach? Instead, Rosburg the coach for 2 weeks, and that's really not enough to kind of get a feel. So, anyway. Hackett should have been fired before he was hired. Yeah. Rosburg, he did get respect, but there was one negative thing on Rosburg, and that is that the one negative thing is that he would have had to curb those speeches. I think he would have learned that, but he would have had to cut those, because we saw some of that in the press conferences. He would have had to get those things condensed after a while. I don't know that story time with Uncle Jerry would have worked on a regular basis. He would have had to rein those things in after a while. But I think he would have, because he had a pretty good sense of self-awareness. I think he would have figured it out. Is Hackett the most incompetent coach I've seen as a head coach? Yeah, I'd have to say so. I mean, just on the Seahawk game alone in week 1, how do you interpret McManus saying that he's good to 64 as getting to a 64-yard field goal and stopping That's the 64 is the outer range, not the point where you stop. The image of Peyton Manning there on the Manning cast timeout. If you want to know what I looked like in the press box at that moment, that's what I looked like. I was in the press box doing the same thing as Peyton. I was doing this. And I'm like, timeout, timeout, timeout. I was flabbergasted at what I was watching. I mean, to this day, I still can't believe the ending of that. And actually, that was walking away from the stadium, and for that game, that was I was staying at a hotel out near the airport, and so I walked from the stadium back to the light rail, and I took the light rail back down there, and then walked to my hotel. So I was walking to the light rail station, and it was walking back to the light rail station is when it was hitting me this guy is probably going to be a complete bomb as a head coach. How did you hear 46 left hash and think that was the range where you stopped? That's the maximum. How did you think that was okay, this is where you stop? The outer range is not where you stop. That is where, okay, this is where if you get there, you don't do the Hail Mary. You send him out for a kick if that's as close as you get. It's not where you say, we're good. And then the next week, the countdown, which by the way, I regard as one of Broncos country's finest moments. When I say Broncos country, the fans, I regard that as one of this fan base's greatest moments when they counted down the play clock. That it got so bad that the fan base realized that these people needed help and provided it. It was completely sarcastic, as we all know, but they gave it. Was it embarrassing for the team, the players, the coaches? Yes, but for the fan base, I believe it was a smart fan base doing that. I think in some ways maybe the fan base's finest hour. And that's something I will always maintain. When it was counting down 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Broncos country at its best. Because because the coaches and their pre-snap process, the coach and his pre-snap process, they were so overwhelmed and they couldn't do it on their own. And didn't want you to hear me cough. And then Uncle Jerry came in, and all the false starts and the delay of games, that was stopped in a week. He fixed that in a week. Why? Because Jerry Rosburg was darn good at what he did. Yeah. It's a terrible game. That Texans game was an objectively terrible football game. Yeah. It was pathetic for the team, but like I said, it was a great moment for the fan base. I actually do mean it when I say I think this is the best fan base in the NFL. And it's moments like that are reasons why. Oh, boy. And you're so frosty and saucy. Yep. Rodgers was supposed to come back, hacking and backed out. Aaron Rodgers was plan A. And yes, they dodged the bullet. They absolutely did. Oh man, appreciate you, Derek. Thank you very, very much, and for that. When Joshy McD cleaned out the Broncos media staff so he could bring in his own videotaping buddy, did it take a minute right to get Broncos again, or do you blame McDaniels solely? Ooh, okay, well, the media staff, like the PR staff, he didn't change. The media staff, like the media PR staff, stayed the same. I think you're talking about like the video taping, like Steve Skarnecchia, like on the video side. And he actually kept a lot of the video people stayed the same. They that were there that he inherited stayed the same and actually remained after. So he brought in some of his own people, but there were people who were holdovers from Mike Shanahan who then remained through McDaniels and then stayed on through John Fox. So it was actually really interesting, Derek, that that you had this brief time with Josh McDaniels, and yet there were a lot of people that were there before for a long time with Mike Shanahan, managed to survive through McDaniels, and then came out on the other side with John Fox. And even though John Fox was not a Mike Shanahan guy, it was like once everyone got through to the other side, once Foxy came in, it was like everything went back to normal. And it went back to everything kind of went back to the way, almost everything went back to kind of the way it was. Normal operations resumed again when Foxy came in and replaced McDaniels. In terms of media operations, in terms of like video and sort of football. Part of it also was John Elway coming in, and of course John Elway in charge of football ops, and John Elway, of course, having played under Mike Shanahan, and sort of that's what he knew. But it was, you look kind of look back on it, and it was like 2 years where the organization sort of lost its way, and then found its way back. And but I will say this, like that is actually one thing now. It's different now with Sean Payton, but it's also new ownership, new management. Everything has changed, but I will say this. There is a pretty healthy respect for the past. I mean, like Rod Smith was out there today. Jake Plummer was out there today. Or on Thursday, I should say. So while it is new ownership, Sean Payton has his own style, his own people, his own way of things, and it's definitely kind of not done in the manner that it was for a long time. There is a very healthy embrace of the people who made this organization, and there's a respect for the people and the history and those who made this organization what it was. And when Josh McDaniels was here, those 2 years, there wasn't really that respect. That respect did, by the way, that immediately came back when John Fox entered the building. Foxy did an awful lot to restore things. I feel like he doesn't get enough respect for what he did to fix a great many things that got broken in 2 years with Josh McDaniels. You'll never get me to say a bad word about John Fox. I was around him in Carolina, was around him here, and that's a guy for whom I have a lot of respect. So anyway, Fox and McCoy, they helped right the ship at the time. And also, I'll give a tip of the cap as well to Eric Studesville, who was the interim coach late in 2010, came in for Josh McDaniels, and he took the first steps to kind of getting the self-respect back for the organization after McDaniels. And that was the reason why Fox kept him on the staff when he came in. Studesville did an awful lot in just, the Cardinal game, the Raider game, and then the Texans game and the Charger game. 4 weeks on the job as interim head coach there at the end of 2010. Did an awful lot to start getting the self-respect of this organization back. And so can't ignore his role as well in bringing the franchise out of really about a 28-game mess in which really the Broncos lost their way, and they got it back, and they got it back, and they were okay. So, Jake Plummer to Daniel Graham, no, they missed each other, because Daniel Graham didn't come here until 2007, and Jake Plummer was gone after the 2006 season. So, they actually did not intersect. Did Daniel Graham and Jake Plummer. So, but Jake Plummer is GOAT. Jake Plummer is a real one. Favorite interim coach, Del Rio, Studesville, Jerry. Man, I'm not, nothing against the other guys, but I'm Team Jer Bear. I'm Team Rosberg. I'd say I probably think about something Jerry said, or some piece of wisdom from Rosberg's press conferences. I'd say I probably think about something Rosberg said once a week. I enjoyed being around him. It was a fun 2 weeks for me. Those press conferences and his statements. It was a trip. It was like that guy knew he had the pulpit for 10 days, and he was going to milk every last drop out of it. And boy, howdy did he. Whew. Sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if he had got the head coaching job. And if he had, man, it would have been wild. Oh, boy. It would have been fun. I'm not saying it would have been successful if he'd kept the job, but it would have been fun. Actually, I think he would have done okay, but it would have meant it would have meant going further down the path with Russell Wilson, and I don't know how that would have worked. That tether needed to be cut. And I don't know that the Broncos would have cut that tether as quickly as Sean Payton was willing to do it. Like, I think it probably would have gone on for another year. I mean, I would say even like with Jim Harbaugh, for example, if Jim Harbaugh had become the coach, I think they might have ridden Wilson one more year than they did with Sean Payton. I think if Jim Harbaugh had gotten the job and not Sean Payton, I think Russell Wilson would have actually still been here in 2024 with J.J. McCarthy. Of course, then would McCarthy have gotten hurt, and it would have been just Russ. I think Payton probably was the right guy to just cut that thing off as much as possible, as early as possible. So, no, that was Ben Watson. Was Derek? That was actually Ben Watson that chased down Champ Bailey, not Daniel Graham. So, can I live your life for one day? It's actually pretty boring. I don't know if you'd want to. If you lived my life for one day, you would wake up you'd wake up in the morning, you'd have 2 eggs for breakfast, because I have the same thing for breakfast. I have 2 eggs. And then you'd respond to some comments on here. You'd shower, you'd pack up your gear, you'd go over to Broncos, and then work, watch practice or whatever, at least during camp. Go get the stuff, then come back here, do some writing, do some editing, put together a package, get ready for a show, do that. do some writing. Maybe some nights you go over to Coors Field, do some writing during the game, keep score, multitask during the game, and then get done with that, come back, do a little more writing, do an after dark, get done with after dark, and then get a little tired, fall asleep, usually fall asleep while watching an old ACC basketball game from the 80s, like a North Carolina game or a Virginia game or something like that on YouTube, and then get up the next morning and do the same thing. It's actually pretty boring. Maybe not. It's actually kind of fun. But that's my life. And right now, it's at this time of year, I'm here. And then in the off season, I'm, part of the off season, I'm in Wisconsin. So I'm around. So then you've got two dogs and family around, and it gets kind of chaotic, and it's a different kind of fun. And, there's travel involved, and, sometimes I'm going to Florida to visit my mom. Sometimes sometimes I'm there's picking up my daughter from school, and there's taking her to dance competitions and that sort of thing. So when I'm in Wisconsin, there's going to basketball games. That's like my kind of, that's my thing that I do if I go out. When I'm there in the winter, I usually go watch Marquette basketball games or Wisconsin basketball games when I get time. So, I got an interesting life, I guess. So, anyway. If you want a fun game to watch, Saints Broncos 2008, Peyton, Mike Shanahan. That's a great fun. That was a great game. Because the Broncos couldn't stop anybody that year. Two defenses that absolutely could not stop anyone that year. So it was fun. They marched up and down the field. And Dennis, you're right. It's far from boring. It is far from boring. If you'd lived my life on Thursday, you would have gone to Costco and picked up some fruit bars, and you would have picked up and you would have had a Costco hot dog for dinner, the hot dog and soda for $1.50, which is always tremendous, topped with hot dog and with mustard and relish, and would have been very excited that Costco has Coke Zero now. That was like a big thing. Again, like in my world, little things. Favorite NFL team of all time? The 1997 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The team that was the first Buccaneers club to go to the playoffs since in 15 years. And I still say probably my favorite day in my life was December 28th, 1997, when my dad and I got to go watch the Bucs play Detroit Lions in the playoffs. That was for me, that was like a perfect day. We started going to Bucs games when we moved down to Florida in 1987. This is going to be the last story I tell before I log off for the night, because I got to get to sleep and then catch my flight in the morning. So I'm going to get a little sentimental here as I sign off, because it's a story about my late father and I. So I didn't want to leave Richmond, Virginia, and Richmond's still my hometown. Virginia is still the place where I feel the most at home. It's something I've been reminded of going back there a few times in the last year. And I was very upset when we moved to Florida in 1987 when I was 11. And basically the way my parents kind of made me feel better was by getting season tickets to the Bucs. Like that was the they probably bribed me with that, I think, by saying, okay, like, we know you're upset about being uprooted, but you're going to get, you're going to get to watch an NFL team in person. Because in the Mid-Atlantic, where we were in Virginia, huge Washington fans, but see, there was a waiting list years long at the time, kind of like in Denver. And I got to one game when because we knew people who had tickets and they became available. And my dad and I got to go to one game when Washington played the St. Louis Cardinals in 1986. And I mean, that was like the thrill of a lifetime at RFK Stadium. And that's like a day I can remember. Like every detail of that day is still seared in my mind. So anyway, in 1987, we moved to Florida, and we started going to Bucs games. And that is in year 5 of 14 consecutive losing seasons for the Bucs. So we were dropped right in. We go right from watching a successful team to watching a terrible team. And don't get me wrong, I'll admit I was a football bigamist because I still pulled for Washington and I also pulled for the Bucs. And still to this day I still have a soft spot. I always pulled for the Redskins and the Bucs, and I still have a soft spot for what's now known as the Commanders. And I still have a soft spot for the Bucs. I mean, it's one of the reasons why, I really kind of hope the Broncos wear those throwback uniforms in November. And if I see a matchup in person that is Broncos throwbacks versus Washington throwbacks, I will probably be weak in the knees looking at that in person. It'll really hit me in the feels. But anyway, we're in Florida. And my dad and I go to the Bucs games together, and they're terrible, but it's everything like, a parent and a child, and a parent and a kid experience together, It's everything it should be. It's, sitting in the stands together, watching the games. We have a pair of binoculars, and we share them back and forth, and, and we're talking about the games and about the game, and we're experiencing it together and all that. And Dad sometimes travels, so he can't go to all the games. So sometimes I go with my mom, and sometimes I go with my brother as well. And then they finally break through and make the playoffs. And Dad's working in St. Louis at the time, but he still gets to a few games that year. But fortunately, he's going to be able to make the playoff game because it's over Christmas holiday, and he's going to be in town. And it's kind of the moment we've been waiting for after following the Bucs for these years, and they've finally broken through. And just getting to experience that with him in the stands. And the first touchdown they scored, unfortunately, he got paged for work, and he actually had to go make a phone call. And he missed it, and he was so upset about that. But then the second touchdown they score, when Mike Allstott rams through, and at that point they go up 3 scores, and they're going to win the game. And at that point we're high-fiving, and we always did this thing when they scored, and we would high-five for 6 points and then 7 points for the extra point. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We always did that, one high-five for every point. And from when I was little, we always did that. And somehow, just having that moment together was just the coolest thing. And it felt like it was all those years of watching losing teams, but still. I can say this, every Sunday that we walked to the stadium from the car, I still believed that the Bucs were going to win the game. As bad as they were, as a fan, I still believed they were going to win the game that day. My hope was always there. And I've thought about that a lot with these bad Bronco teams of the last few years, that even though they were lousy, they still had a chance. The Chiefs, they go play the Chiefs and they still had a chance, right? You never know what could happen. And so I often thought about those days, and I would think to myself about how it felt being a fan of a bad team, but how good it felt when they finally broke through. And so when the Broncos clinched the playoff bid last January, I found myself thinking about that day when the Bucs broke through and went to the playoffs, and my dad and I were there. And so anyway, December 28th, 1997 was that day they went back to the playoffs, and I got to be there with my dad. And we even had like some friends were in town as well because it was Christmas break, and so we had a tailgate. Some of my friends were there as well from high school, and we were all together. It was like a perfect day. So that's my perfect day, and it involved football and it involved my dad. And so anyway, I'm rambling here, but that's just. It's what this game can mean to all of us, right? It's why, even though it's a silly little game, it's a silly little sport, it does mean something more than that. It's something I try to remind myself when I think that this job isn't important, but it actually is. Like when people are struggling and they're having tough times, but this thing can kind of be an anchor for all of us in a tough time, right? So something that brings us joy when we need it most. And something that, like, I look back on that, I mean, I miss my dad, but I have that. I mean, I have that memory. That's never going to leave me. It makes me feel close to him now, even though he's not here, that it's still as vivid as it was the day it happened. I mean, it's nearly 28 years ago, but it still feels like it was yesterday. And so, anyway. And the thing is, like, all of you probably have, I hope you have a memory that involves the Broncos that is like that is that strong, because, maybe you don't have material wealth, but memories like that are what really make us rich. That's what really means something about life, and it's what really means something about this game, and it's what really makes this sport, and any sport, truly special. So anyway, I think I'm going to leave. That's a good place to leave you here on this edition of Denver Football After Dark for this Friday morning. And I hope you have a great Friday wherever you are. I appreciate you taking part of your day to watch this show, and look forward to chatting with you again. And enjoy your Friday, and take care, as Abraham Lincoln and Bill and Ted said, be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. I don't know why. That just popped in my head. Maybe someone put it in the chat room. I don't know, but I was just wanted to think of something to sign off with. So take care. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and get the latest on this channel. Join C. Salami and myself. We've got a preview of this game. We're going to dive more into this game at 5 p.m. Mountain Time on Friday to break down Broncos-Saints, looking ahead to what to expect in this preseason finale, and then what to expect as the cuts come down. Unfortunately, the worst days on the football calendar are going to be coming here on Monday and Tuesday, saying goodbye to some of these guys that we've gotten to know over the last few months. So anyway, take care. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on a future edition of Denver Football After Dark, and of course on Orange and Blue Today on the Denver Sports YouTube and social channels. Take care. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.